This is our first ever live stream for our Fatal Vision podcast. This is your host, James McGinnis, and we've got Billy G. What's up, Billy?
Billy G here. Yeah, man, I can't believe it. I can't believe we finally made it here after all this time.
Yeah. Um, well, what do you think this means to us that we're live? I mean, we're prime time. We're going up against the weekly show. Is that on? Is that a thing?
The Daily Show's coming on pretty
Coming
soon,
on
and
in a few minutes.
yeah, I mean, when we first did a Fatal Vision podcast recording over a year ago,
Oh,
and
what, the first one ever?
yeah,
First one of all time?
yeah,
Would have been, well, yeah, I mean, that would have been, we're talking May of 2024?
yeah, and then I would just put it on my Google Drive and keep it there.
Just to sit and fester.
Yeah, I never imagined that we'd be on a YouTube channel with people that actually listen to all our dope commentary. But I think what really broke the dam was your discovery of the 60 minutes tape. That's how
Yeah,
we found our. That's how we found a lot of our Fatal Vision family.
that's
Also,
true.
credit to the Facebook group, the Dottie Facebook group. Gotta give some love there.
We've come a long way, and that was, you know, the day we found that 60 minutes recording was we were able to get onto the YouTube space and multimedia verse, and we broke through into the hundreds of listeners versus the tens, and that was a major up. And I can see we have one viewer on the live stream on YouTube already, so that's epic. So
Oh my
welcome.
god!
Yeah, well, we won't just obsessively watch that, but yeah,
You
the
can
chat.
see that?
Yeah, I can see that. If you click at the top there, it says, oh, they already. We're gonna drive them out of here at this point, but
They already left.
no, they're here. They're here. Oh, they did leave. All right, sorry. No, they've seen enough. That was enough for them. That was sad. That was really sad. All right. Well, the chat is open, but there's nobody to chat in there. But anyways, so we're working out the kinks. If it turns out nobody actually watched the live stream, we could just go back and edit all that out later. So thank God for that, right, Billy?
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know how you can see any of that, so I'm
well, you can't see the YouTube symbol in the top right-hand corner of the screen.
no, I guess it's linked to your YouTube channel. So
Oh, that's why. All right. Well, don't worry. There's nobody here right now, so that's okay.
cool.
Well,
Well, so
I
we
was in the middle of
promised.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Let me just
No. Go ahead.
give
Go
us
ahead.
some direction here. So we've
Yeah.
promised everybody that uh, we have some new discoveries to share
Yes.
about the case, about Fatal Vision, about your dad.
Well, I think it's important that we get this out because um, Mark Smerling did a podcast just about exactly 5 years ago called "Morally Indefensible." It's one of the great short form podcasts on the market, and a lot of it was based on Joe McGinnis and Jeffrey MacDonald's relationship, and then how it was later interpreted or misinterpreted through the high literary work of Janet Malcolm, and the damage that it did to my dad and the family at large. So that's the story. He featured in that podcast some clips of tapes that she had made with her subjects for that book, The Journalist and the Murderer.
Yeah.
And we have successfully procured the entire raw catalog of tapes that she made for that book, and it is our intention to put them out one at a time. And Billy, maybe you can provide more context for people that are new to the scene here that don't know what Janet Malcolm even is.
Well, Janet Malcolm is now deceased, and she was a much acclaimed journalist. She wrote for the New Yorker. She wrote several books, and one of her more famous works was called "The Journalist and the Murderer." So, Fatal Vision is the subject of our podcast. It is Joe McGinnis's masterpiece. It is a good book. It is a fair book, and it was published in 1983. And to write the book, Joe McGinnis got very close to its subject, Jeffrey MacDonald, who is still. Where's Jeffrey MacDonald right now?
Oh, actually, he's not in Cumberland, Maryland. He's in Butner, North Carolina, as we speak. If the Bureau of Prisons is correct, so federal prison, by the way, not just he's not just living there; he's incarcerated.
Right. So Jeffrey's in prison right now. A jury convicted Jeffrey MacDonald, and Joe McGinnis. Oh, thank you, Patricia, for the comment.
Yes, we got some comments coming in. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. So years later, Jeffrey MacDonald sued your dad. And what was the basis for that suit?
Oh man, fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress were the two main torts that were in the suit. False friendship,
Got it.
I guess, was the thing of what the fraud was wrapped up in.
Right. So, you know what? I actually have here one of our favorite pieces of writing by Gene Weingarten in the Washington Post, piece he wrote about the evidentiary hearing from 2012, where he summarizes the McGinnis, MacDonald, Malcolm situation quite well. Let's see. The lurid crime, meaning the crime committed by MacDonald, was an international story that became even bigger with the publication of Fatal Vision, and later to an excruciating spasm of self-examination by the media. The MacDonald murders had spawned a second big story. From prison, MacDonald sued McGinnis for breach of contract, alleging that the writer had betrayed him. During trial and its preparations, McGinnis had embedded with the defense team, ostensibly to write a book about an unjustly accused man. At some point, the writer became convinced of the doctor's guilt, but never told MacDonald, fearing he would lose the doctor's cooperation. So as he was ingratiating himself with the convicted killer, feigning incredulity over the verdict, encouraging MacDonald to send deeply self-revealing letters from prison, McGinnis was writing a book describing MacDonald as a narcissistic psychopathic monster. McGinnis contends he behaved ethically in dealing with MacDonald under enormously difficult circumstances. So it's civil jury deadlocked. But after reviewing the trial transcripts and exhibits, New Yorker writer Janet Malcolm in 1990 wrote an article that eviscerated both McGinnis and the entire profession of journalism. Its famous first line, every journalist who's not too stupid or too full of himself to notice what is going on knows that what he does is morally indefensible. Malcolm contended that McGinnis's tactics were symptomatic of what all journalists do to some degree: fool people into trusting them, then betray them by spinning facts or distorting them to create whatever compelling narrative they wish. Every story, she implied, is on some level a con job. And this is the last paragraph I'll read. The accusation rattled the prickly, inward-peering world of journalism. Reporters took sides, most in a defensive crouch, with some acknowledging an unnerving whiff of truth in what Malcolm wrote. Journalists do have agendas. Their articles do marshal facts selectively. They don't always reveal their biases. Stories are seldom completely arm's length. This greater journalistic debate seemed inextricably linked to the MacDonald case. It became almost impossible to write about one without summoning the ghosts of the other.
Hmm.
I would add, and oh, Rob Moore is here. That's good.
Oh, he's in here?
Yeah, he's commenting in the chat.
Oh, sweet.
Good stuff. So
Good
so
stuff. We
I
love you,
would,
Rob. Yeah.
and there's nothing you can do about it, buddy. Um, Gene wrote this in the obituary for your dad in 2014. That part of the reason today there's any argument at all about MacDonald's guilt is the extent to which Malcolm muddied the waters
Oh, yeah.
and destroyed, or attempted to destroy your dad's reputation.
Eh, Yeah. And certain people would say she was quite successful in that. He being among them. So
Yeah.
it was a harsh thing. Um, and it's as Gene, I think Gene puts it so well, and thank you for reading that, is that when this case is referred to in the media, or even I think it was just today that a famous actress was who's in a new Netflix series said that she drew her inspiration from a great book by Janet Malcolm, which showed that writers are just as bad as murderers. So that was it was nice. It just came out a couple hours ago, so it's sticky. It's this sticky thing. This Malcolm book that ended up becoming a staple in journalism schools. And I'm just coming into this episode tonight. I'm like completely ambivalent about trying to break through to the intellectual class of people that follow Janet Malcolm's book or think it's great or are fans of hers. I just,
Well, can we zero in on that a little bit, because
yeah,
it's an interesting debate, and I enjoy getting into it because I just know so much about it, and I'm so close to you, and I've read Fatal Vision, and I just know how wrong Malcolm is, how reckless she was in what she had to say in The Journalist and the Murderer. And I'm not speaking about the rest of her career. I'm not speaking about the other books that are beloved. I'm not denying that she had gifts or anything like that. I'm talking about this one book was really, really reckless, and the argument doesn't hold up. But for you, this was something that did a number on your life in a number of ways.
well, I think it's just this is what happened to my dad is that he struck he got into a business deal with a guy who murdered his family and who has shown nothing but boundless contempt for anybody he perceives as a persecutor. And so any um, he knew I think he just knew that if he went ahead and wrote the book at all, and he had no choice but to write it the way he did, if that MacDonald would become his enemy for life, and MacDonald would never ever stop trying to harm him. And the lawsuit was incredibly successful and disruptive, but Malcolm was his most potent weapon in terms of harming him psychologically, hurting him. And
Yeah.
she became uh, just a useful pawn for MacDonald and his camp. And I think that comes across in these tapes in
Yeah,
ways.
yeah. So before I want to,
Yeah.
because we're going to get into that a bit. So why was it important to you, having gone through this with your family and your dad, to go and find a way to hear the tapes?
All right. Well, it's important to me because it's showing how she is as much of a hypocrite as anybody else when it comes to the crimes that she's charging my dad with, or being a false friend to him, or anything like that. But because the tapes show her being very, very affectionate and kind to my dad and opening him up to vulnerability, and also not being at all interested in MacDonald's actual guilt, and becoming quite taken by him, and having utterly no curiosity at all about his criminal case and about what he did to Colette, Kimberly, and Kristen, and Freddie and Mildred and Bob by extension.
Yeah, all the
And I
people
think
that
that's the
were.
most important thing here is the victims. Yeah, McDonald's victims. And I think by fashioning a propagandist from one of the biggest, most heralded publications in the world, was able to sort of push the truth aside out of what is at the heart of this case and turn it into a work of creative nonfiction, and that you can argue it's her literary chops all you want. I don't care, obviously. But the other thing it did is what, as Gene said in his article, is that it made people think that McDonald might not have done it after Joe did all the legwork of showing that he did, and Blackburn and Murtaugh before him, and War Heidi, and everybody who's sweated blood into getting this guy tried and convicted and kept in
Yeah.
prison.
So how did Janet Malcolm? I just think because this speaks to the point you were just making about the way that she um, encouraged your dad to open up. How did your dad come to even interact with Janet
Well, here's
Malcolm?
the thing, and this
Yeah.
is he's written about this in it's in the epilogue of Fatal Vision, and it's also in this previously unpublished thing um, from his memoir he wrote in 2013, which we've been putting out on the Substack for free. He could not believe that he was in having a trial on the defensive against McDonald, who was wearing back to wearing pinstripe suits again, and having a lawyer, examine him in front of a jury, and being, scrutinized, and his whole life treated like a criminal himself. And he couldn't believe that nobody seemed to care. He thought it was a big fucking deal that uh, it was 4 years after the book, and he was on trial, and McDonald was a murderer, and that had been upheld, that had been established, and the case had been allowed to go to trial, and he thought that it deserved detention, and so he, after the hung jury sent out a plea to 31, I think, journalists to write about the case, write about what McDonald was doing and how it was a risk to the First Amendment and authors telling the truth. And nobody else was interested but Malcolm. She picked it up, and she immediately said she wanted to come interview my dad and write about it. And that's how they came to meet, and that's how she came to write about this. Um,
Right.
that's sort of the. But I think she had an agenda in mind already before she took it up. I think she wanted to write something
Well, she had
critical.
her own
Yes, yeah, definitely.
lawsuit about making
Yeah,
up
she'd already
for.
been sued
Yeah.
by one of her subjects, and for making up, inventing quotes in her books, and which is something she later admitted to actually having done after the case had been um, tried. She wrote, it was like it was the last essay she published in 2020 or 2021. So she had her own experience with that, and then so but this after she talked to Joe, she talked to MacDonald, and she was became quite infatuated with him, and that comes through in these tapes, and comes through in the tapes that her discussions with Bernie Siegel and MacDonald's friends and his supporters, and the book, as a result, was a con job on anybody who had the misfortune to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I was talking to a friend recently who was saying that, oh, if it wasn't for Malcolm, Fatal Vision would be right up there within Cold Blood, no question. But she was able to, to destroy its legacy in
Right.
terms of the Academy. But talking about this stuff is just so. I feel like it's boring, honestly, to talk about the academic side of it or the journalist side of it. I mean, right? I mean, who gives a shit what they think in those circles? They don't even care about the case or the victims. And most of the people we interact with here on the channel are, they care about what McDonald did. And when I talk to people who are in academia or writers, they're like, well, it's not a, well, Malcolm's book isn't about whether, a murder case. It's about journalists and their subjects, and it's not about whether she gets key facts wrong or omits things or distorts things. It's
I
just
do
really
kind of
good
want to
writing.
engage.
Yeah.
I know it's boring and a waste of time, but I do kind of want to engage with part of her argument because there's one of the tapes you found is a conversation between Malcolm and Joseph Wambach. Can you
Yeah.
tell folks who he is?
Yeah, Joseph Wambaugh was a super best-selling true crime writer and novelist who had been an LAPD homicide detective, and he testified at the civil trial. And I think this is one of the things that got Malcolm into the case, is she thought it was an outrageous thing to say, which was that he had no problem telling an untruth to get the truth from a sociopathic killer. And in one of these tapes, they have a back and forth, quite heated, where he discovers that she's not on top of not down with his point of view, and I think he gets the best of her, but that's my. What else would I say?
So yeah, let me talk about that for a second. So an argument that I hear sometimes from people that I like and respect is that Malcolm made an interesting point about the relationship between journalists and subjects, who gets to tell the story, and what happens to you as the subject when you invite the writer in and then the story is out of your hands. So it happened to Jeff MacDonald. It had then in Malcolm's hands, it happened to Joe McGinnis. So people, people make that argument. Oh, and the subjects, they end up giving themselves away, and then the writer becomes all powerful and can do whatever they want. Now, there's a problem, I think, with her argument that Wamba speaks to, which is that Jeffrey MacDonald is a psychopathic child murderer.
Yes,
So
and that's a fact.
that is an established fact. That's just a true statement about Jeffrey MacDonald. If anybody is guilty of a crime they've been convicted of, it's him, and it's been established and upheld again and again and again and again. I defy really anyone to look at this case for any length of time and not conclude that, Errol Morris notwithstanding. And I don't even think he really
No, I mean,
believes.
where's he been? Where the hell's he been? Yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't actually.
He doesn't give
Yeah.
about this. Yeah,
So sure, like if I'm a journalist and I act like I'm best friends with the subject, and the subject is just some guy, and then I make
like
him.
like yeah, like a
Oh, go
writer
ahead.
maybe. Maybe
Yeah.
like a writer who got sued by a murderer. You could act like you're his best friend. That would be pretty bad. Yeah,
Right, and then you just make him look awful.
yeah.
Or if I'm writing about what was that piece we were laughing about, the sci-fi
Oh
writer.
yeah, the Brandon Sanderson takedown in Wired. I think it
Yeah, the
was.
writer
Yeah,
goes to Brandon Sanderson's house, and it's like Brandon
like
Sanderson thinks he's cool, but he's
he's a
really
terrible
not.
writer. He like yeah. It's just like yeah.
Okay, so those are examples that could have supported Janet's lovely little argument. But oh god, this is someone in the comments.
I know.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob. Um, it's very deep. It's very deep, Rob. This is the peril of going live as we. Yeah, I should just close the chat.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we're glad you guys are in the chat. Feel free to chat with each other, but we got to get through this episode for everyone that's that's gonna listen on demand because it is 11:20 in the East, so people are asleep sometimes. So
Yeah, so Janet, like if this book weren't about Joe McGinnis and Jeffrey MacDonald, if it weren't about a convicted child killer, then I'd say, yeah, what an interesting little thing to think about. I'll think about that some more. But the example she chose is the worst example she could have possibly chosen to make this point.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's that clip from the PBS special after my dad died, where it's like the 4 or 5 people in Boston sitting around saying, her thesis was, you know, can you be worse than a murderer? And the answer was yes. And despite the title, she's not at all. She never talks about McDonald being a murderer at all in the entire thing, other than that his being charged when it might have biased certain people against him, and then she just sort of these tangents on psychology and whether or not anyone can know the real truth because it gets very I'm sorry, it's pretentious drivel, the whole thing. So it's really triggering in every way because it's also just insufferable smugness all around. I'm sorry. Maybe if it's your cup of tea, then great. But I read the epilogue, or I skimmed the epilogue from the New York Review, of the so-called epilogue, because I heard her referring to it. Well, I'm working on my epilogue soon, and we'll see what else comes through there. And that's where she brought up the subject of how McGinnis might have thrown a dart at an effigy of Brian Murtaugh with McDonald, and how it wasn't right to
Not right to do that.
for a TV movie to depict McGinnis not as actively involved, as if one of them had been charged with projecting sharp objects toward a human being, and the other hadn't and never would be.
Hey James, we just got a new chat from. I gotta shout this one out. This is
What's up?
This is Molly Moran
All right.
calling Janet Malcolm a smug bunny. Great inside joke.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
That's my buddy.
That was a great call out, Billy.
It had to be called out
It had
after
to be
we
called out.
acknowledged Rob Moore.
Sure. Well, let's see. Where the heck were we?
You were saying it's pretentious drivel.
Yeah,
and,
it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It is. I don't like it.
Okay, so for people that are interested in this case and the debate that it occasioned about journalism, what can they expect to learn from the tapes? Was there anything
Well,
in the
right.
tapes that really blew your mind?
Well, I think what we should, before we move on completely from the pretentious stuff, is the so you have that angle where everyone says, oh well, it's she'll be the first to tell you that she's as guilty as anybody else of being a shitbag journalist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but then in the same breath they'll say McGinnis was the biggest scumbag in human history because yeah, it's like it's just like that's not the impact it has on people's perceptions of Joe and Jeff. And you put Jeff into the victim box and Joe into a perpetrator box, and we could go on for we could sit here all night and talk about um, everything that was out of context, everything that was omitted in terms of the tenor of the letters, and quoting so heavily from letters from September of '79, which was like a week after his conviction,
Right.
to 1981. What was the tenor then? Telling Bernie Siegel in 1980 that it could go either way, and telling MacDonald on the phone in '82 that um, don't count on this book as being helpful to your public relations campaign. Um, so that none of that makes it into her book, and the effect is that McGinnis was a villain, and
Mm-hmm.
another consequence is that McDonald's guilt was cast in doubt because, well, if we can't trust what's in Fatal Vision, we can't trust that he did it. Um,
Yeah.
so that's important. Then you said, what's up with these tapes? Is your question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think a big thing that started this
And James,
podcast.
I'm sorry that that happened to your dad, man.
No, it's all right. I mean, it's not over. It's
I'm
not. I
sorry
mean,
that
that's
it
why we're.
happened to you and your
It's okay.
family.
It's not over. The story's not over. We're sitting here right now, writing a new chapter. So, um, in the last few months, since we took on this project here, we have made many good friends who are in the McDonald research community, and that have bestowed upon us gifts and pointed us in the right direction. And one of the things that we found a few months ago was a complete catalog of every tape recording that Janet Malcolm made while she was researching the journalist and the murderer. And the reason that's important is because, um, one, it shows that her book is full of shit, because if you listen to the tapes, you can see how much she heard and took in and discarded, or how much she admits to not knowing, like telling people over and over again, I actually didn't read Fatal Vision. Um, and that's disqualifying. That alone is disqualifying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but more importantly, it's as part of the work we're doing um, for the legacy of Fred Kassab, to keep McDonald in prison and keep people knowing that he is a monster, and these tapes will help that cause by giving people access to the complete picture. And as our friend who's now no longer whose website is no longer up, Christina, started 20 years ago, just giving people access to all the facts, and you can come to your own conclusions. But I'm confident the conclusion you'll come to is that McDonald is more of a monster and more of a sociopath than you could have taken in just through a 700-page book in Fatal Vision, because it just shows you more. It's like getting
Yeah.
yeah, it's like getting 2,000 more pages. I mean, the tapes are hours, tens of hours long,
Yeah.
and including McDonald, McGinnis, Wamba, Bernie Siegel, Roy Shetlick, McDonald's private eye, coming up with dirt on hippies in North Carolina in the '80s, trying to get appeals. Um, uh, the great Bob Keeler, the Newsday reporter, out of Long Island, one of the eminent MacDonald writers in the newspaper world, and I'm sure I'm leaving a few out. So it's just going to be real. What our plan to do, and what we're going to do immediately after we're done with this broadcast, is we're going to upload the complete McGinnis tape, which was recorded in I think it was September of '87 at the house in Williamstown where she visited from her summer home.
And you were there as a
I
little
was there
child.
as a 3-year-old boy, so I don't have any. You can hear me in the background. I think we've edited that out. You don't need to hear that.
No, you
Um,
don't. You don't want to hear
you
that.
don't want to hear
No.
that shit. But yeah, it's just very personal because my dad was being very vulnerable with her, and you'll that'll come through loud and
Yeah.
clear. And I think it's just a great. It's also just a great, regardless of the context of whether or not whatever Malcolm went on to do was evil, or you don't want to talk about evil, just untrue, and or I think I'm coming more and more to believe after reading some of her notes that she lacked agency completely and was just at the mercy of MacDonald, who is an extraordinarily powerful mind and manipulator. And I think
Yeah.
I would offer that she did not have agency for what she did. And she was all. And what also comes through in these tapes is she's a true believer in his innocence,
Yeah.
which is important context for the book. Which
Well,
so I think it's a
yeah,
gift.
yeah.
That's a
Because
gift to everybody.
if you think the guy might have been guilty, then the whole argument she's making completely crumbles.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about what are we talking about here? What is the crime? I
Right.
mean, and when you start to realize when you listen to McDonald for hours and hours and hours in these tapes talking about my dad, with just and never talking about his kids or his wife, but just
Yeah.
but his hatred for Joe, his hatred for Brian.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing that's telegraphed so brilliant in Fatal Vision. It's just his caustic sarcasm and an unhinged mania towards his persecutors, and which I'm so I it's so clear. It's just and it's also just terrifying because when you think about that, I was to have made an enemy out of him, you know, probably wasn't the greatest idea. It had terrible consequences for my dad, but it did produce a great book, an immortal book, and
Yeah, I want to ask something, James. You
yeah,
were texting me recently when you were going through some Malcolm related material and you saw some writings by Jeff and you were
yeah. No, I
you,
actually
what
in
you
just in the last week I came across over 100 pages of letters that Malcolm MacDonald wrote to Malcolm from
well
prison.
yeah, and what you said to me was you felt afraid of him for the
I
first time
did, yeah. I
since
mean,
you were a little
we've
kid.
been able to keep him at a distance with all this joking and around because he makes it so easy with the voice of Jeff stuff and the smug stuff and it's
Talking
been
about food all the time
yeah,
and
talking about food, just talking about the irrelevancies of life and just sort of this Patrick Bateman litany of just not just listing things all the time and people and just spelling out people's names and Cosmo Yakavazzi and Bill Bradley and all that crap. So we've had he's there's plenty there to mock. But reading, knowing what I know about the truth, and reading these insanely granular letters where he's nitpicking everything. Is never he can't he doesn't give up any ground on anything at any point, even things that are established fact in court. He'll fight tooth and nail, and he'll just and with the most bitterness. In his letters raging about it. And I was just reading it because I was holding the real papers, the actual ink that he spilled, and the actual Christmas cards that he sent to Malcolm from prison. And I was like, this guy killed his family, and then he wanted nothing more than to hurt my family too, and that's fucked up. So I felt, yeah, I did not feel well. Usually when I'm talking about this with you, we're both just big. Um, we're just really into the case, and we're experts on it, and we want to talk about it. We want to give people more information about it. But that was an experience where the emotion of it and it was overwhelming to me because I could really feel the side of him that killed, and the side of him more alarming to me is the unrepentant side. Is the side that did that act and would never and will never ask for forgiveness or admit guilt. And that's a part of me, part of his lack of humanity there is what's the most chilling.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and his obsession with, you've already touched on this, but just
yeah.
to underscore it, just his obsession with his tormentors, right? The people he blames for where he is, and the lengths to which he will go to get his revenge.
Oh,
And
yeah. I mean,
like his goal, like he sued your dad knowing that your dad had not violated that contract. Yeah.
my dad had two releases that said you can basically write anything you want. You can even fictionalize things in one of
Right.
them. So, I
Right.
mean, from a legal perspective, the whole thing is just like mind blowing. But and a lot of it, and which gets lost, was about money and how MacDonald wanted money from my dad's next book, Blind Faith. He's like, you can't hide money from me by writing another book. That's still my money, and it's sorry we got blowing up here, but so yeah, there's that side of it, which so then there's just in one of MacDonald's letters to Malcolm after the journalist and the murderer comes out, he is writes point by point everything that he thought she should. He wasn't satisfied at all with it. He's like, what about all the money Joe stole from me? You left that out. He stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from me, and on and on and on and on. So it's like the pathology is just always working. It never rests, and that's apparent in the audio tapes, the letters,
Yeah.
and then if you look at the followers McDonald has accrued over the years, accrued and unaccrued, some famous ones who dropped off the map, like Errol, and then the 90s era people, Lucha Bartoli, and I guess Dershowitz was kicking around for a minute back there. Like no one sticks around, even Mike Malley. And then apparently even his own brother and sister, came to believe in his guilt eventually. So nobody stays with Jeff. Nobody stays. I mean, maybe Janet Malcolm, from some accounts, she still thought that he was innocent till the end, and I have no idea how long they've corresponded, if they corresponded up until her death.
Right.
That remains a mystery. But
Right. Yeah, so people that have listened to our podcast since the beginning, you probably all have episode 25 bookmarked
yes,
for the depth of spiritual insight James and I achieved. But in all seriousness, some of what we talked about in that episode was the nature of evil and grace and human nature, and how the longer you participate in evil, the more it just becomes you. It becomes a kind of enslavement, and you can't get out of it, and then it infects everything around you, and then that has to be broken by the truth. Like evil's all it's rooted in the lie, and the freedom has to be in the truth. And Jeff could have stopped at any time and told the truth, and as long as he doesn't, the victims mount. So the night of the crime, he did not have to go down the hall to
Hmm.
Christie's room. He didn't
Nope.
have to do that. Like Blackburn said, he did not have to do that. He chose to do that. In the weeks that followed, when all the hippies in Fayetteville were living in terror because of the crime and the attention that it brought to them, he could have stopped then. He could have stopped lying to Freddie and Mildred at any time. And yet he persists in it.
Hmm.
And the wreckage accumulates. And I thought what you said about Malcolm and agency, it might sound hyperbolic to some listeners, but the point is Jeff took her in too, man. And
Yeah.
and his dishonesty continued through her and through Malcolm's book to wreak havoc on people's lives who didn't deserve it. And your dad is just one of many
Oh
that
yeah.
that we've talked about.
Sure.
That like Jeff tonight could say, you know what,
I I
I did
agree.
it.
Yeah, obviously I completely agree with you, and um I don't know then, but if Joe Wamba was here, and I wish he was, he would just say, I don't know anything about evil. He's just a psychopath. He can't do it. He cannot do it. And I love, that's just how he put it. I think he put it with that in the Smerling interview in 2020, and that's how he put it at the civil trial, is like, the guy is just a psychopath. He can't tell the truth. He will never tell the truth. He just doesn't have the capacity that you and I have.
Sure, sure.
That might be too. It's
Well, you're getting
too.
then you're getting into all kinds of metaphysical
You are.
questions at
No,
that
then you
point.
are, and then I think there's also some. Um, well, we're going back into the, like, Sadov could give him a 2-hour exam and say this guy is perfectly innocent, and how much can be, where does MacDonald fit into? There's a fascinating question, and it's worth exploring, and it is explored heavily in the grand jury segment sessions with Warheide about, well, who the hell, how does this guy's mind even work? How does something like this happen where a guy can, and it's not unheard of, slaughter his entire family, commit a horribly violent crime, but then go out and thrive, and just absolutely thrive in a community, and
Yeah.
um and
I have something
that
I want to say. I have
yeah,
something
go
else I
ahead.
want to say. Yeah, I
Sure.
mean that part of what's so insidious about the journalist and the murderer is the kind of debate about whose side are you on, Joe McGinnis or Jeffrey McDonald? Like who did the worst thing? And the way your dad has been turned into this journalistic villain. I believe
Hmm.
you told me that people on the street in Williamstown would yell at him like, "Shame on you, Joe."
That's a fact. Yeah, that happened. I mean, it was like, no, he was a high up in a department at an elite school. He was a Williams College professor. Shame on you, from
Yeah.
across the
So I
street.
wanted to say something
Yeah.
for the people that are on this channel who will listen to these tapes. Listen to Joe talk to Janet about his process of writing this book, and you will immediately recognize that this is a brilliant man who cares deeply about his craft and this case and the truth and comporting himself in an ethical manner. There's been a bit too much dragging of Joe in a variety of places. And James, I know what motivates a lot of this for you is love for him.
Oh yeah, of course.
And you know what? Your dad was good.
Yes.
Your dad was good, and he did good, and he did the right thing with this. And I think I defy anybody listen to him talking to Janet and then tell me that this is a guy that wasn't in touch with, you know, important truths about life.
No, of course he was. And I
Yeah,
think that's a gift to you, to anybody who listens to it. Because I
yeah,
think it's one of the best records of him and his process. And one of the big tragedies of it is how she squandered this amazing interview with him, and of course ends up not quoting it at all in the book, and then mischaracterizing it completely and saying that he was just a scared, narcissistic subject, just like the rest of them. So you can, that's like that's it gets like one sentence in the book.
right, right.
So yeah, I ask you to listen to it and absorb it. It's so long, and I think that's one of the great things about this age that we're in, is that people's attention spans have shortened in some ways, but have gotten longer in other ways. And when you have an interest, a hyper interest like this, something worthy, a great cause like the cause against Jeffrey MacDonald, and a great book, an immortal book like Fatal Vision, it is worth your time and attention to absorb as much as you can. And we are privileged to give you access to it. And
Yep. So we're gonna release the tapes. Um, are you gonna release them in any kind of schedule, James? How should people expect
well,
to?
yeah, I mean, we might as well, we're not going to try to bleed it. We're not going to try to just like, oh man, another 2 weeks, like, hey, hang out, keep subscribing. We might give you another tape. We're going to get them out fast. We've got the whole Joe McGinnis tape ready to go, so that'll be uploaded immediately tonight.
Okay.
Um, and then we'll just sort of work through the rest. I still have a few that I'm working on getting converted to MP3. So that could take another couple months because that's outside of my control. That's relying on a third party. But your prayers are welcome there to speed that along. But everything we do have, which is a lot, like I said, McGinnis, McDonald. That's not the complete. We're working on one more McDonald tape or two more that we don't have yet transcribed. So I want to get them all together. So that we might save McDonald for last, which might be a horrible clickbaity tease. But we'll do McGinnis first, and
Well, there's some great stuff where Jeff rants about the unfairness of the parole system.
the parole system and breakfast and it's a lot of the voice of Jeff stuff come to life in the flesh. And
Yeah, if you've enjoyed our Voice of Jeff chapters in the podcast, you are gonna love these tapes.
well, what's funny is I was talking to our friend Matt Zoni and the other day about like I was listening to these McDonald's tapes with Malcolm, and like he just driving me crazy. He's so boring, and I was like, how could she have been impressed with him? And I was like, well, maybe it's because we're only hearing part of the picture. We're not seeing him with our eyes.
We're not seeing him
No,
eat the powdered donut.
no, that's the thing. His beauty is just so breathtaking to behold for her that all that sounded like boyish charm, and you'll hear her characterize it as he is the most optimistic and upbeat person I've ever met, and he's in an 8 by 11 cell. And I know
Oh yeah.
people that are.
All right. Since we're live, maybe we can check the chat
Let's see
and
how it went. Yeah.
see if anybody has any questions for us before we go. We'll
Oh,
take questions for the next few minutes. Um, Love Shack, Sarah, what's his health status now? Roberta is correct. And in fact, he's been moved to a new facility in the past few months where inmates go when they are on, incarcerated people go when they are on hospice. So,
uh, and I really want to give a shout out to Roberta for joining us tonight. We admire your channel, obviously, and follow it and everything you've done to fight innocence fraud. And I really, the reason I'm calling you out the most is because that part of Fatal Vision where my dad recounts this dream he has about Colette McDonald. while after visiting the crime scene for the first time is one of the most haunting things I've ever read. And not to make anybody uncomfortable, but I took that as a direct spiritual link where he was sort of placed on the trajectory of what he had to do, and was asked in that way by her spirit. And he shared that. And well, he shared anyway. So that's my feeling on the matter. And as Roberta says, he does this amazing scene where he tells Jeff about the dream, and Jeff just says the Yankees won last night, and just changed the subject with a blank face. So we
Okay.
appreciate that call out, because that's one of
Good.
my favorite parts in the book.
Good.
Yeah.
Then Rob Moore, who we love, said, it is just weird that Rob is, shit talking your dad while you're like right here. But whatever. He's, we're free speech advocates at the Fatal Vision podcast. So
Oh yeah,
Rob.
we're free speech extremists.
So Rob Moore says, if you don't mind answering a question, I have two. Is it true that her book has been used in journalism schools? Yes. If it has been, why has it been chosen, and to teach what? Probably about journalistic ethics.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's. I have no idea. I don't really care, because it's not telling the truth about the case. So, first of all, the case is the worst example, as Billy pointed out, because we're talking about a murderer of children, and also it's not even the way she presents it. She she fictionalizes it to make Joe into the bad guy, and MacDonald into someone sympathetic. So it's not worthy of your time and our attention. And if it's gotten that in the academy, then well, I don't particularly feel great about the state of academia or journalism either. So, uh, but that's a whole nother. That's as I say, another story. Was there
How
another
many
question
people
from
are?
Rob you want to address?
Well, Roberta just said, "Thank you. Your dad was a big inspiration to me,
Oh,
covering big trials from the courtroom. Appreciate it." Oh,
oh, thank
Roberta,
you so much, Roberta.
we should collaborate sometime.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Talk more about this. Any more questions for the people tuning in? Are people actually tuning in?
There's 13. We ended up with 13 in the chat, which is epic.
Oh, holy shit!
Yeah. So that's awesome, guys. Thanks for coming.
Wow, that's
Well,
very moving.
yeah, I don't really have a coda or any way to close this out, other than, you're probably all going to want to hear the tape. So we should probably get to work on uploading it.
We're gonna get to
Um,
work on uploading it, and as
yeah,
always, our message to you is simple: we love you, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
nothing you can do about it. Thank you for your support. We love you all. Good night.
Good night.